Over the past days, the strategic landscape in the Middle East has shifted markedly as tensions between Iran, the United States, and regional partners accelerate. While the underlying issues span nuclear programs, regional proxy networks, and military posture, the latest statements underscore a growing readiness for open confrontation. Defense officials in Washington have signaled that U.S. forces are preparing for what they describe as an imminent escalation of conflict in and around Tehran. At the same time, Tehran has issued warnings that any U.S. strike would be met with a broad counterattack. Iraq, meanwhile, finds itself urged by the U.S. not to permit its territory to be used as a launchpad. The scenario now developing is one of overlapping deterrence, escalation risk, and regional actors caught in the crosswind. Iran's posture, ready and resolute, Iranian military and political leadership have doubled down on their readiness to retaliate. According to Iran's Defense Minister Aziz Nasrizadeh, if a conflict is imposed on us, all U.S. bases are within our reach and we will boldly target them in host countries. This was delivered publicly, signaling that Iran considers its reach not only defensive but potentially offensive. At the same time, Tehran has warned that its nuclear facilities are moving into more fortified positions and that its centrifuge capacity is being upgraded. These steps accompany a hardening of language. Iran's leadership asserts it will neither be coerced nor isolated. U.S. warnings to Iraq. In Baghdad, the government of Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani is confronting a complex diplomatic web. U.S. intelligence and military channels have reportedly issued direct alerts to Iraqi authorities over alleged Iranian plans to mount large-scale operations from Iraqi soil. One assessment states Iraq received a direct threat from the United States following Hebrew media reports accusing Iran of planning a large-scale attack on Israel in cooperation with Shiite armed factions. Iraq is being told explicitly, do not interfere and do not become the platform for an Iranian strike that could trigger full-scale war. On the Iranian side, Iranian state media and commentary accuse the US and Israel of concocting a threat narrative to justify an invasion or strike on Iraq. The American and Israeli regimes fabricate an Iraqi threat to justify aggression and destabilize regional stability, one Tehran editorial argued. This tug of narrative leaves Iraq in a difficult position, being asked by Washington to police its own territory, stymied by Iran's denials and regional power dynamics, and confronting the possibility that any misstep could draw Baghdad into a larger conflict. U.S. strategic posture and the imminent warning. In Washington, Pentagon planners and defense analysts are reportedly shifting into heightened alert. The joint public message they send is that the U.S. is not seeking hostilities, but must be prepared for them. One reference described an imminent attack on Tehran as part of the contingency planning. Meanwhile, Iran's threats to strike U.S. bases in the Middle East are being taken seriously. The message from Tehran that all U.S. bases are within our reach is being treated as credible. The broader implication is that the U.S. is signaling to Iran any escalation may quickly lead to direct confrontation, and the window for diplomatic containment may be closing. Nuclear front and Iran's calculation. Beyond troop movements and missile warnings lies the nuclear dimension. Iran is under increasing pressure from the IAEA, which adopted one of the most serious censure resolutions in nearly 2 decades. Tehran responded by announcing a new enrichment site and the upgrade of its centrifuge technology. In essence, Iran appears to be signaling that it is prepared to both intensify its nuclear-capable infrastructure and defend it militarily. From Tehran's perspective, these moves are part deterrence, part strategic leverage. Upgrade the nuclear line, raise the cost of war, force adversaries to calibrate carefully. Regional ripple effects. If conflict erupts, the effects will ripple across the region. U.S. bases in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf states are potential targets. Iran's ability to strike from its own territory or from proxy forces adds complexity for American planners. Iraq's role becomes pivotal. A misstep in Baghdad could trigger an inability to manage proxy operations, hostilities, or even Iranian retaliation. For Tehran, avoiding the narrative of encirclement or weakness is key. Iran insists that we are not defenseless and encircled, citing its own ballistic and missile advances. Iraq serves as a strategic fulcrum. It hosts U.S. military bases, is home to Iran-aligned militia groups, and is the route through which Iran might project force or supply proxies. The U.S. demand that Iraq not interfere or host Iranian offensive operations is more than diplomatic. It is a line of risk management. At the same time, Iraq must maintain sovereignty and avoid becoming the battleground for others' rivalries. The risk of miscalculation. What is clear, both from Washington and Tehran, is that neither side wants a full-scale regional war, yet their actions are setting up precisely that risk. The warning of an imminent strike and the matching readiness to retaliate creates a strategic pressure cooker. Should a missile be mislaunched, a base mistakenly targeted, or a warning ignored, escalation could spiral. In this layered setting, Iran views its hardened posture and nuclear upgrades as protection, but they also raise the risk that adversaries will preempt if they believe time is running out. The U.S. sees Iran's thresholds slipping and is signaling readiness to lower its own threshold for action. Iraq is caught in between. If it allows its territory to be used for Iranian actions, it risks war by proxy. If it tries to curtail Iranian influence too aggressively, it risks destabilizing its own internal balance. Allies of the U.S. and regional partners will be forced to choose how much contingency support to provide, how many bases to reposition, and how much risk to absorb. Diplomatically, the best hopes remain indirect talks between the U.S. and Iran over the nuclear issue. But Iran's leader, Ali Khamenei, has indicated no room for compromise. In the military dimension, the U.S. is increasing readiness, but any actual strike would carry immediate heavy risks. For now, the main strategic message is deterrence. Iran warns that any attack will be reciprocated. The U.S. warns that it will not wait long. The next move may hinge on whether Iraq acts to prevent Iranian launches or whether Iran attempts to preemptively strike a perceived threat. We will not give in to America's coercion and bullying, said Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian in a recent address. All U.S. bases are within our reach. We will boldly target them in host countries, said Iran's Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh. According to analysts, Iraq received a direct threat from the United States following reports accusing Iran of planning a large-scale attack. As of now, the region stands on a precarious edge. The convergence of Iran's nuclear advance, its missile readiness, U.S. strategic positioning, and Iraq's role in hosting and controlling proxies has created a volatile equation. Unless diplomacy intervenes, the possibility of miscalculation or deliberate escalation remains strong. For readers and watchers, the central question becomes, will Iran back down under U.S. pressure? Will the U.S. act first, or will Iraq's territory become the flashpoint that forces both into a fight neither fully wants, but may be forced into?